My name is Gerardo Aldana. I'm the Dean of the College of Creative Studies. What we're doing today is we're having a conversation with some students to explore this theme of student life. What is it like to be a student here at the college, CCS at UCSB, to get beyond just what you see on the brochures, what you see on our website, but to get into the experience of living at CCS. So we'll have a couple of students who are going to join us. We'll talk to them a little bit about learning here, about experiential learning, about the campus, about their expectations and how things have turned out. So thanks for joining us, and we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Ana Gonzalez. I am a fourth year writing and literature major, pronouns she, her, ella.
Yeah, and my name is Sofia Quiñones. I'm also a fourth year writing and literature major, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We just want to talk about a few different themes about working, living, and learning at CCS. So kind of we can start off with one of these big questions folks always wonder about, like, how is it that learning, one, at the college level is different from what you've done in the past? And then two, how do you think CCS provides a different learning experience from what you've heard from your peers or from others at UCSB, others at other campuses? How would you characterize the learning experience at CCS for you? And are there any moments that have stood out that captured that for you?
So one of the first things I'd say is what's really characterized my time here at CCS. Back when I was applying to colleges, one of the first things I knew I did not want to do was spend my first 2 years just plugging through GEs that I didn't necessarily care about. I knew I wanted to write. I knew I wanted to start writing, and I wanted to write about things, and I wanted to engage with topics that I wanted to learn about. So, but unfortunately, what that meant was either a $72,000 art school on the East Coast or a perfect little CCS program at a UC, a lot more attainable. And so when my father and I came for Spring Insight in my senior year, sun was shining, everyone was very nice and friendly. Kara May was, our advisor was very nice and friendly. And I just felt like, yes, this is the place, that I want to come. This is what I'm looking for. And so far, CCS has followed through with that in not only allowing me to guide my own educational and academic path, but help guiding me through that path, not just dropping me in the middle of like, all right, here you go, do whatever you want. But having the support and guidance of CCS really does help you navigate the new territory and the broadened world that you are exposed to when you are in college, living on your own, guiding your own education for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's sorry for a second, Sophia, but I think that's a great point that you make, Anna, about how it's not really that you create your own major and you kind of do whatever you want. It's that there's a freedom, but you're guided through choices and how do you engage that freedom. Your advisor ends up being key, I think, to the educational trajectory that you take. Is that more or less capturing what you guys have both experienced?
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with Anna. Like, and for me in high school, I definitely felt like in the AP classes that we took, in the English classes that we had, yes, there were people who maybe liked what we were reading, liked what we were studying, but I never felt like I was in the kind of community of people who were inspired by what we were studying or who really wanted to focus on writing and literature. And when I came to the CCS, even before that, with the tour that we took of the CCS of the campus, I was already just so inspired by everything. It felt like a very I don't know, it felt more like a community rather than classrooms and teachers. And when I joined the CCS, that really came to fruition for me. And it was such a breath of fresh air to be surrounded by people who were as passionate about the field I was studying as I was. And that in itself just felt so different from any of the other colleges that I toured and that I looked at. You know, it didn't feel, like I said, it didn't feel like a school. It felt so much like a community. And that was,
Can you guys,
yeah.
sorry, can you guys talk a little bit more about that? Like, what is it like to be in that space now, where you know that folks are as passionate and as curious about the subjects that you are, and you're, it's a different kind of learning, isn't it, than being in the larger class with a lecturer and
Yeah.
What?
Like,
Yeah, sorry, you go.
oh, okay. It's so much harder over Zoom to delegate who goes first. At least like I liked that the classes were smaller and it was more of like, it felt more like a round table discussion and more open to people's opinions rather than a lecture hall. And being surrounded by other people who wanted to talk just as much about whatever we were studying was really nice, because I feel like in other classes that I've taken, whether there be GEs or some other requirement, it's always been so, I don't want to use the word dull, but I feel like it's, people are always kind of waiting for others to speak, and some of them are just there just because. So to be in a room that is charged with all of this like very intellectual energy and all these people who are excited to talk about like anything that we're studying, it really encouraged me to engage more with the curriculum, and it definitely felt more professional almost. The whole space felt more professional because everyone was serious about what we were discussing. So that's what I really appreciated most of all. And then we also, like, as kind of a result of that, we also got a sense of just how amazing all of the other writers we were working with were, like our peers and our professors. So that it made everything feel a lot more special, and you felt like you're being included in something that is so different and just so, I don't want to use the word special again, but just so special from any other kind of college experience I could have hoped for or considered. So
Yeah, I 100% agree with you in the professionalism that each major takes on in CCS. One of CCS's taglines is a graduate school for undergrads, which to some people seems very daunting. However, I think it takes the best of graduate school. So in graduate school, you have a close-knit community that's either working with one professor or one department, and you just have that community regardless of what you do. You are going back to this one class, this one professor, this recognizable home. And I think that really matters, especially in freshman year when you are entering, if it were not COVID times, you'd be moving out of your home, surrounded by new people, and just wanting so badly to fit in. And I think that's actually what really helped me about CCS in my freshman year, is that I was taking a bunch of large lecture classes like econ and linguistics. However, every other day I had at least one class where I was with my peers. I was with this recognizable group of people who reminded me what the long run was, why I was, why I was in college, what I was actually here to pursue. And that having that connection, and I see that with all the majors in CCS, especially with the STEM majors, their homework is pretty unique. So they're all looking to each other for help. But I just see, I'm glad that I am able to see that community within each major. That's not just something that's unique to the writing and literature department. Everyone has their home no one really has beef with anyone else.
I really like what you guys are talking about. It's kind of one of the other catchphrases. You know, we have that catchphrase, graduate school for undergraduates. We also talk about inviting you as junior colleagues from the moment you get here. And I think that's one of the things you're really speaking to, that notion that we're not looking for people who are going to be passive in their education. You can't sit in the back of the room and just kind of like hope that you do what it takes. Instead, folks are here to be active, to jump in, to have the discussions, to freely engage wherever the discussion might lead them. And I think that that's definitely the space of a strong graduate school experience, where you are learning together, you are exploring together, and things are emerging from that bond that you create, that intellectual bond. Yeah, this is fantastic stuff. That's what we like to hear. So let's move into a little bit more of the actual experience of that, right? So we talk about experiential learning at CCS, and that can sound just like an abstract term. Experiential learning, well, don't we do that every day? But at some level, we're talking about really getting inside that space where you can talk about your work with your peers and with your advisors in a way that's very different from other pedagogical settings. So can you give us maybe an example or something of what you understand experiential learning to be, and what it's been for you in CCS?
So one of the unique things about the writing and literature major that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else is our capstone projects. And that I think is the definition of experiential learning, as you know, from in your junior and senior years, you are expected to guide your own project, find a separate advisor or faculty member to work with, and guide yourself from there, either through both through research and creativity, a certain theme, a certain genre, whatever you want to do. Because I am a Spanish minor, I decided to focus on Chicana literature, and I had the privilege of working under Professor Sherry Moraga. So that was, that has been such a gift to really understand what it means to guide your own project, because that is something that's void of deadlines, void of any kind of progress check that I think you rely on maybe too much in school. So it's really teaches you about self-reliance and self-control in a sense. Yeah, self-reliance basically is the best word. It really allows you to trust yourself as a professional, not just a student, not just the subordinate position of a student.
That sounds, I want to let you go, Sofia, but I mean, that is a unique opportunity to be able to work with Sherry Moraga on like as a writer. That's something phenomenal that the campus has enjoyed over the past couple of years when we successfully recruited her. We stole her from Stanford, so that's a great thing. Yeah, please, Sofia.
Well, I completely agree with Anais. I think that definitely creating our own subject, creating our own project, and having to present it and show why we want to do it, it definitely makes for a more professional setting. It kind of teaches you to be more disciplined in how you use your time, how you go about creating the project as a whole to represent you as who you want to be as a writer. I personally did my project on horror literature, and I worked with Professor Christian Thomas, and that I found was one really awesome to work with someone who is a professional, who has studied the field of writing, and then take that wisdom and apply it to my own work. And then also I just feel like in general, there's there's just kind of I'm sorry, I'm not saying this very well. I feel like our whole kind of course through CCS has asked us to go out of our way to really engage with the writing community. At least in the writing program, I feel like we have been asked as students to engage in the writing community in any way. Like we have been asked to go to like lectures. We've gone to, I think it was the Arlington Theater at one point. We went downtown to go see authors give talks, and we were encouraged to ask questions. I remember one of my favorites was watching or going to a talk hosted by, a talk by Zadie Smith, author of Swing Time. She was amazing, and to be kind of encouraged to engage with authors and real world people who are successful in the field we want to be a part of it felt like we weren't students, like Anais was saying. Our program really helped us feel more like we were working towards becoming who we wanted to be, and less like we were studying, and less like we were at a school. We were kind of thrust into a professional setting and a kind of a place in our studying, in our career as a student, to be more and to be asked more of, and to be who just engage in a way that we would if we were not in school. I'm sorry if that didn't make sense.
No, that's right on.
Happening behind me, and I was kind of getting.
No, but we're talking about engaging a community of scholars, joining a community of scholars. I think this is what you're all speaking to, which is perfect. I think the other thing that this raises for me, and because you're both writing and literature students, it may resonate. We were speaking with Kaylin, who's an alumna now. She was in the program last year. She was talking about what it's like to be able to work with the same mentor and get feedback on your writing from the same mentor over the long term, as opposed to getting, just like comments on an essay that you submit to an instructor and then really never see again. Did you have anything similar, any similar kinds of experiences working with your mentor where they get to know you as a writer and that changes the way you write?
I would say one of the things here that has impressed me as a writing and literature student is Kara Mae Brown, our advisor. Her consistency with what she tracks. I mean, Sofia and I had the benefit of the fact that she only had 2 classes to take care of when we came in, but now she has well over 60, anywhere from 60 to 100 students to just manage, and still every single time, she knows the specifics of what you've been doing, and she can tell you, she can give you basically a diagnostics of all right, this is kind of where I see you, and this is what I suggest for you. I don't know how she does it, but for 4 years with more students coming in each year, she just has just the best scope on what's going to help a student. And of course, you can't go to the same person for for feedback, but with her, I feel just so comfortable and heard, which I think is so important, because with advisors in other departments, you are 1 in a million. So so you spend half your advising time, you're just running them down again on information that you've explained to them 3, 4, 5 times already. However, with Kara Mae, just automatically she just knows, and then as that's transferred to Maestra Moraga, I feel even that much more comfortable, because now we are able to talk about certain experiences in writing as women of color, and almost kind of looking at an older and younger version of the same person. You're just kind of that sounds arrogant. Never mind.
It's a good idea.
It's two different generations of women of color writers, basically, and one learning from the other. That's more what I was trying to say there.
Yeah, I agree. I feel that our advisors really ease us into the kind of space where we feel more, not necessarily equals, but definitely feel more comfortable talking to them as if we were working together always. I always felt that I could go and speak to Karamay very casually and very frankly about how I was feeling in the CCS, or how I was feeling with work when she was working with us as our academic advisor. And that definitely translated into working with Christian Thomas, because it felt very comfortable then. It felt very comfortable that we were not a student teacher necessarily. We were working together on a project. We were collaborating. It definitely felt more like a collaboration than something like I was a child and I really didn't understand what was happening around me. I felt like CCS really gave us a space to grow and feel more professional and feel more kind of equal to the other professional writers that we were trying to, or other writers who were at a tier we were trying to reach ourselves. So.
This is really provocative, because what I'm learning from you all is that we talk about, for example, in physics or in math, how the first couple of years are accelerated versions of what you might get elsewhere, so that by your junior, senior years, you're able to engage that research level, but there's something parallel going on in writing and literature, where you have to learn how to engage the production of writing or engage writing studies itself. What does it mean to study literature? There's this almost a social component to that you have to get acclimated to before you can engage it at the level that you really want to at the junior and senior year. So we're really doing the same thing in each of our majors, but it takes on a different character depending on the kind of knowledge that you want to engage. So let me kind of like one more little on this thread, and then we'll shift over a little bit if that's okay. Can you give us just a brief little, I mean, you're both at that stage where you should be able to do this, right? Like the little, what is it that my project is about? That elevator speech, if we could call it that, around what you're doing or what your senior portfolio is about.
Do you want to go first, Donna, or should I? Okay. Well, like I said earlier, and I'm so sorry, I don't know why I get hung up on this word, but I've been studying the horror genre. So basically my driving question was what makes words on a page so scary? How do horrors invoke fear in their audiences? So I set out to kind of I read three horror novels as kind of like the basis of my research. And then of course I did other kind of secondary sources. And then I won't dive too much into it because this is an elevator pitch, obviously. And then, so my project was 3 stages. And from my research, I used it kind of as a catalyst for the other 2 parts. The second part was a photo series, because photography is one of my kind of passions or hobbies. So I did a photo series to try and personify the human psyche experiencing horror fiction, or how someone would read. I tried to read a scary story. I tried to personify that. And then the captions were written as little bits of microfiction. So I used the stories to inspire the fiction, and kind of tried to almost hone in exactly on how to just capture that fear in a very short amount of time. And then the last part is a short collection of stories that I've written myself, so I can, or by applying what I've learned from my other two parts of my research, and it all just ties together very nicely.
And do you venture outside of horror fiction, or do you write strictly like?
It's strictly horror. It's more, it felt more of like a genre study, although since I was kind of focusing more on the thematic devices of fear, I definitely, I stayed within the genre. But
And do you give any delineation between horror and thriller genre, or is it mainly just?
That's a good question. I actually focused a lot more on kind of the classic tropes like haunted houses, the paranormal, the supernatural. You know me pretty well. You know I like this.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the things that that kind of drove me to go into this project. But I read stories like The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which is now one of my favorite novels ever. Fantastic. I read The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, and I read Time Windows by Catherine Rice, which is a book that I read back in like the beginning of high school, the end of middle school, because I remembered it scared me so much. So I reread it to kind of figure out why. And it's like a maternal horror story, and it's fantastic. Anyway, I read those, and those were really just, they drove me through the rest of my project. So
thanks.
All right, so I would say my project is about Chicana literature and Chicana testimonios, or testimonies. So so my creative project is a play based on my experiences as a Latina college student, and and my approach to writing, as well as like in the context of what it means to be a Chicana college student, as as much as we are welcome here, with with people who are with people who want to seek out diversity and stuff like that. We do face other issues, like for example, imposter syndrome is on the rise in young adult Latinas. You also have to pick apart what diversity means in each context. Like, for example, UCSB on paper has been awarded a Hispanic serving institution. But if you look at what that actually means, it just means that we have more than 25% Latino representation in our student body. That doesn't necessarily mean that we actually have the appropriate support for those students. So that's what made my involvement with Maestra Moraga's Las Maestras Center that much more important for me to follow through with this theme, that our stories do need to be told. We do need to have stories that just don't focus on on struggle, like our lives in relation to struggle. That's not always a narrative. We don't like reading that, watching that narrative over and over and over again. We do struggle, but there is so much happiness to be gained as well. So that's my project.
So, I mean, maybe you could just give us for a second, because not everybody's familiar with the idea of testimonio, that there's something there, that it's not just strictly a testimony. It's not just taking somebody's experience and recording it, but there's something activist within that method. Can you just give us like a little?
Yeah. So testimonio is more of a comment on a certain condition. Like for example, one of the most notable testimonial collections is Maestra Moraga and Maestra Anzaldua's This Bridge Called My Back, which is an anthology of radical women of color writers, and each one has a unique perspective on a certain condition in society. Like I was just reading one about white feminism, and how your queerness is seen different than your person, than your person of color identity, and especially, and sometimes white feminists, or like the problem with white feminism is that they have, there is a problem in connecting the two and seeing the person as both simultaneously, and how each movement, feminist, person of color, queer, they will all separate that part of your identity, but finding your place as claiming all parts of you, and affirming that you have a right in that particular movement is that important.
That's brilliant. So you're talking about really, I mean, the origins of intersectionality and how it's worked both as a form of agency and a recognition of oppression that came directly from the writings of feminist scholars of color. So that's brilliant. Thank you. Let's kind of step back now and think about how all this happens at UCSB. Like, do you feel like, is there some kind of disjuncture there? Do you feel like, oh, it's weird because CCS is this kind of space and it's so different from the rest of campus? Or do you feel like you find ways to kind of navigate both settings? Or like, how do you feel your overall experience is when we are on campus, moving back between these different spaces?
It is a little strange in the first 2 years. In the first quarter, I kind of pictured it as like when you get a new goldfish and you kind of keep it in the sandwich bag for a little, for a little bit, just to ingrain himself into the new fish bowl. Like I said, having that sense of community to go back to, really helped and didn't just open you up to a giant campus that you're not familiar with. But at each step of the way, each major does their best to make sure that you are utilizing everything that the campus has to offer. So the CCS breadth requirements are designed to do that. You have to take stuff that does not relate to your major. That already will help you expand into all different kinds of departments. That's really what made GEs fun for me, is that the fact that, like, great, I don't have to take science and math again if I don't want to. But it is, it does open you up, and it's like baby steps. Like, you can go as far as you want. However, you will end up getting to know the whole campus.
Provides you with something of an anchor as you move out.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like CCS kind of became a comfort space in a way, where we would move between our GEs and things that we were studying outside of our major. And then I would come into the CCS building, go to a workshop or whatever I was studying at that time. And I could definitely feel like kind of a contrast between the two spaces. But at the same time, it not only made me appreciate the CCS space more, but it made me appreciate what branching out and being a part of, and kind of seeing into different departments. Like, I would take other writing courses or English courses, but I'd also take like astronomy courses. I would take these things I learned from the GEs and I would bring them back to the CCS and use that new knowledge to apply it to my writing, to apply it to what I was learning. I remember distinctly, I was taking a media criticism course, and then I was taking, what was it? It was like a course in the art department, and then I would come to the CCS and we were talking about the exact kind of concepts. And it was not only like, it was a very visceral shock that I had for a second, because I realized that everything works together. Everything's interlocked in one way or another. And the CCS became a space where I felt the most comfortable applying it, because then I was in that space that we were talking about before, where we were surrounded by a lot of people who were really willing to discuss and work on what they were passionate about. So I feel like that they kind of those two, the UCSB campus itself and the CCS college kind of merged together as I moved through my time at school, and became just two things playing off of each other. And I was just in the middle, kind of absorbing it all. And it was really very rounded education in the end.
And I mean, what you're capturing, I think, is one of the things we talk about is we say it's CCS aims to be a liberal arts college on a Research One institution, meaning that you have some place where you've got your peers, you can learn together, but you can also go out and explore like the vast, from marine science to ancient history to the classic. You can do all of this stuff, but in the end, you always have some place to come back to, and it's that relationship with your peers and your advisors and your staff that makes CCS your anchor. That's kind of, it sounds to me like you guys are describing what we aim for, which is great. I think I have kind of just like one. I kind of want to get into one thing, and then we'll go to the last question, if that's all right. You guys both came from Northern California, and then you came to CCS on the beach. Did that meet your expectations? Did you care about that? Was it a factor? Like, what is your whole experience with just being in the Santa Barbara area now?
Sophia, you first. I'm interested.
Yes, I am always a NorCal is best Cal kind of girl, but I remember when I was touring colleges back in high school, I went to a couple on the East Coast. Wasn't for me. I came down here, the beach. I just living in growing up in a valley. It's going to the beach always felt like something special, like a day trip, but going there and touring the school and seeing how beautiful it was, the way that the campus cultivates the natural habitat around it, and the way that it kind of, I can't think of another word to use, so I'll just say the way it bleeds into like the coastal area, Campus Point, the beach, Isla Vista. It, for me, I mean, as a writer, it was so inspiring. It was such a beautiful space that I immediately felt like I felt comfortable there. I felt welcomed there. The ocean itself is so, I don't know, it's such a calming space. I mean, people will even listen to it at night to go to sleep. Like it was such a stark contrast to what I was used to, but in the best way possible. So I definitely felt at home there, and it felt like the right place to be because it was a very inspiring place. It was a very inspiring place for someone who's creative. So
can I jump in real quick, just because I know exactly, like, you captured it with that line, like being from the valley, going to the beach is a special. I grew up in a little town called Escondido, which is in San Diego County. And so it was a big trip for us to get out to the beach. We did it every once in a while, but 45 minutes to get to the beach as a family. And that's a different experience from living here. So you, as a writer, I guess you captured that scene for me from my own childhood. Thanks. Anna.
Yeah, so it's a little interesting for me as I am actually from SoCal. I was born in SoCal and lived my first 4 years more in the Los Angeles area, though not like Ventura County. And then when I was 4, my parents here were just fed up with the traffic, and they were just like, you know what, San Francisco it is. So that's how we ended up there. But really kind of, really going from, I think, like Sophia said, going from the valley to a beach, so such beautiful environment. I think it kind of has the same, it has the same effect of, like, the campus really does bleed and I think accentuate the the way that it is a a literal coastal campus. And what it's done for me anyway is just, especially if you take a poetry class here, like you really you really get you get to really reap the amount of beauty that, of living close to a beach. And what is provided for me though is like, if I've ever gotten overwhelmed or just needed a break, just dart to the beach. I have done the thing of like just going to the beach and just sitting there for 10 minutes to a half an hour. That will just reset everything for you. So I think it really does have that benefit for students. It does kind of sound a little cheap after you've heard it like for the fifth or sixth time, just like, oh yeah, Santa Barbara has the beach. But it really does do something for for the environment. I think it's one of the abilities that we've been able to talk about mental health on campus. It's just like, you have a beach, go spend some time at the beach.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I mean, that's what I've heard so many times, that the setting that we live in can be a complete asset for folks' mental health. It doesn't have to be the beach. Maybe it's going up into the hills. Maybe it's going downtown, but there's enough of an overall environment here that it can give you that break. It gives you that space to be able to just, bring it down, get out of your head for a second, let that problem go, and relax. I'm really glad you brought that up. Thanks. Okay, I think we're getting close wrapping up, but there's this little thing that we do, or we have done, that we'd like to try. Can you each give us, this is kind of putting you on a test, right? Can you give us 3 words that you would use to describe CCS? This is kind of like the thing they do in that, like there's this TV show, I don't know, the Actors Guild or something, where they would always ask you, like, I think it was like, what are your 3 favorite curse words? We're not going there, but do you have 3 words that you would use to describe CCS? And let's drink some coffee and think about it. You guys are wordsmiths, so there's extra pressure. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Definitely one of my first words is just the word sure. Because whenever I've had to approach Kara May, Frank Bauman, or anyone else in the higher, in the higher up CCS, hey, can I do this thing? For example, in freshman year, it was, hey, can I do an internship with LNS, despite the fact that I'm not technically eligible to do internships? It was just sure. As long as you have a good motivation to do it. Sometimes it's just even as simple as like, it sounds fun, I want to do it. The beauty of CCS is just everyone is going to say sure, and they will sign the papers, they will fill out the petitions, they will write the recommendation, they will do whatever it is that they need, that they need to do for you to do what you need to do. So sure, support because of everything I just listed, and motivation because CCS takes in motivated students. And let me also define motivation a little bit. I think what may put especially seniors in high school, when if you're really passionate about something, but maybe you're like, maybe I should just do the English department. We're not looking for people, who have a 5-year plan, already set out. I mean, it's great if you do, but what we are looking for in CCS and the people I have met, they don't have a plan, they just have a passion. So, and if you have a passion, everyone at CCS will help you put everything in line, even if that passion changes. So, yes. So once again, sure, support, and motivation.
Can I say, I think you may have tagged another one of our lines. That could be something we're going to have to use in the future. You don't have to have a plan, you just have to have a passion. That's really good.
Thank you.
Okay. I got 3. Here we go. Okay, so my first word is comfort. And when I think of that, I immediately think of like sitting in the lounge slash kitchen and reading all the things people wrote on the whiteboard walls, or sitting in a classroom playing that. I know one of the classrooms has a piano, sitting in the waiting for the class to start, playing the piano, people sitting and talking, and just all feeling kind of in a very comfortable space. Like I said before, I always felt kind of, I don't know, it just always feels so welcoming to walk in there. Everyone's so inspired and just happy to be studying what they want to study. It's a true comfort being a part of the CCS. And then my second word is bright, because not only because the people there are very bright, but just because I think it kind of goes and filters into comfort a little bit, where it just feels like a very energetic space that has all sorts of things going on, and like just so much going on, but at the same time everyone's very tuned in, everyone's very plugged in. It's very bright. The energy there is very warm and bright. And then my third word is visionary, because I feel like being a part of the CCS really helped me and helps so many other people really focus on who they want to be. Really helps them kind of see into the future without feeling too intimidated, because they know that they are being supported by so many amazing people, amazing professors and staff, and that people are rooting for them. They're not just another name on a list. So those are my three words.
That was great. That was great, both of you. I mean, honestly, I have to be able to sit back for a second and note that, like, with COVID, we've all been kind of remote, which is hard. The other thing that's really challenging, I think, especially for us as administrators, is we don't get to spend much time with you all, with students in the college, and just being able to chat here, hear a little bit about what you're up to, it's really inspiring. You really do capture what we're aiming for with the college. So I really thank you for taking some time to chat with us today. And hope you have a great afternoon. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with us, or anything you felt we didn't cover?
I think I would just like to emphasize again, especially for applying freshmen or applying transfers. I think the thought of CCS, or the thought of CCS like demanding so much of you in the first day, that's not, you're separating from that. We are not asking you to be AP scholars. We're not asking you to be IB and ask if you have like this crazy, have this crazy amount of achievements. We are just asking that you have a passion, and from that we will help you support that dream.
Yeah, absolutely. You have nothing to lose by applying, but you have everything to gain by being accepted. And so I guess that's my advice to kind of on the tail end of what Anna was saying. Just apply. And if you really are really passionate about something, then the CCS is a perfect space for you to explore that.